Goldie has a surprise guest for us halfway through. But please call us at 636-0110. Any questions, any comments, any additional information that you have, we always welcome your calls. Goldie, thank you so much for keeping the pulse going while I was away, and I just flew in this morning from Africa.
Welcome back, Barbara.
Thank you.
Glad to have you with us, and I understand you had a fascinating trip visiting Cairo, Tel Aviv, and Johannesburg. So why don't we just start with what's going on in Egypt? What did you see, speak to, and what's going on the ground? From where we sit, it seems to be a weak economy, no tourism, a civil war with the Muslim Brotherhood, and the Copts seem to be having a real hard time.
Exactly right. You've summarized it enormously well. And I have to say that Egypt is in a strong but precarious position. They are, when we met with multiple people in Egypt, and certainly ambassadors prior to going, we were briefed very strongly. We met in Tel Aviv before we flew to Cairo. We were briefed by the ambassador, the Egyptian ambassador to Israel in Netanya. We met with the Israeli ambassadors who were being based in Cairo, the previous one, who had to be pulled out in an emergency when they were attacked during the Morsi era, and the president ambassador. And then we flew into Cairo and had multiple briefings at the American embassy there, which was interesting, and various government officials. What the underlying message was that there was a distrust of America. That was very clear. They knew that most of us were Americans, and they were very upset with what had happened. The feeling.
Are you referring to this is basically what happened to Mubarak?
This was what happened to Mubarak. The so-called Arab Spring, which they felt was never an Arab Spring, that it was in fact labeled as an Arab Spring by President Obama, and in fact was never an Arab Spring. As you said, there are multiple issues that they experienced, and this was a protest. And what happened was, if we remember, the minute President Obama came into power 2009, he made the Cairo speech. He bowed at the feet of Mubarak, the ruler of Egypt, who had been there ruling for over 30 years. And clearly the people were fairly dissatisfied, but having embraced Mubarak, and then during the Arab Spring, pulled out Mubarak, and he was imprisoned, as we know. The feeling was, where was the loyalty, and who was Obama? The feeling was, why did he support Morsi? Morsi is part of the Muslim Brotherhood, and Egypt is very, very insistent that the Muslim Brotherhood, even though they were elected at the time, because you have to understand there's a population of 95 million people, and the number of the people increase 2 million every year. So there are a lot of illiterate people, a lot of starving people, and they were the ones who were radicalized.
Well, let's talk about the Muslim Brotherhood. The Obama White House, the Clinton State Department truly believed that the Muslim Brotherhood was a democratic and positive political institution, and they believed that they could work with the Brotherhood, and they welcomed the Brotherhood, as you said. They initially endorsed Mubarak, and then they moved him out and they replaced him with Morsi, and then all chaos broke out, and the Copts, which are the Christian Egyptians, I think one of the oldest Christian churches in the world, seemed to bear the brunt of it. And it landed up in a coup d'etat. So
that was part of it, Mark. The Christian part was part of it, but the major part was that the fact that Morsi was actually changing the constitution. He was taking all the powers for himself. In fact, what he was doing was he was disbanding anything that smacked of democracy.
So did they think it was going to be one election, one time, Muslim Brotherhood rule forever?
That's exactly what happened. And anything that had women in it was actually dismissed. We went to meet with the organization called the National Council for Women. There must have been in the room when we met with them maybe 25, 30 very westernized women who had shown that they were petrified that they were going to lose all the power. It was going to be a male-dominated society. So General al-Sisi at the time was the head of the army under Morsi, and they realized they had to take control of a declining situation. And with the will of the people, the general took over, and they were very optimistic. He had at the beginning an 85% popularity. It now has diminished a little bit, but it's still at 65%, which is higher than we have in America at any one time.
But we all see those pictures that are coming to mind of the graduating class from, there's a famous university in Cairo, which is one of the most oldest and most famous in Islamic rule in the Islamist world. And in 1945, they all look pretty Western, and you see the same graduating class today, 2015, and they're all, under the scarf or the khadur, they're all covered. I mean, and you say, Sisi has 95% approval rating.
85. He started with 85, and then it diminished. And now it's about 65 approval rating. So they still have hope for him. But he's struggling because he actually spent a lot of money hoping. He needs money. That's clearly what he needs. He needs money, and the economy is terrible. He devalued their currency. He built a parallel Suez Canal, so it was almost like ships going in one direction on the one side and in the other direction. But unfortunately, that hasn't brought in the revenue he had hoped. Then there was a problem also because there was a great alliance with Saudi Arabia. They were on the same page. Saudi Arabia was funding
talk about
Egypt.
That. Well, what exactly happened, and can they put it back together again? That's the key question.
The problem is that Egypt is struggling with its domestic issues. Saudi Arabia, for the first time, has got involved in a war in Yemen with the Houthis, supported by Iran, and Saudi Arabia has gone in because, as we know, it's Sunni versus Shiite, and Saudi Arabia is Sunni. So they had hoped, and they're not doing very well, unfortunately, and they really needed Egypt. Egypt has been funded enormously by American weaponry, has state-of-the-art equipment, military equipment, and the Saudis really needed the Egyptian help. The Egyptians are struggling with the other issues and didn't really want to start with a war in Yemen. What war they're dealing with? They're dealing with war on either side of them. The war in the Sinai and the Libyan war, which again they blame Obama for pulling out Gaddafi. So going there as an American was very tough. We actually needed a huge amount of security. We were surrounded constantly by police presence. We had armed guards with us at all times. We had sirens raging with police cars in front of our vehicle. We had a man a military man on a motorcycle. And it was actually interesting.
It doesn't sound good for tourism, which I think is one of their big revenue sources.
Right, which is true. Tourism is at a greatly diminished rate. I think it was since the downing of the Russian plane. That was a major, major setback for them. I'm not sure why it was such a major setback, but it has. Muslim Brotherhood, of course, are constantly attacking the Copts, trying to create problems for General al-Sisi because they do want to create chaos because they hope with chaos they can come back again. The one request was, would America please regard the Muslim Brotherhood as a terrorist organization?
Well, while you're away, there was some movement on that front. It was a serious lead story in the journal that they are trying to put together a Sunni coalition of Jordan, of Saudi Arabia, of the Gulf states, and of Egypt, and allied with Israelis, maybe Israelis providing intelligence, more like a backseat, but involved. And part of the need to get that coalition structured, one of the asks coming out of Egypt is that the State Department ban or declare the Muslim Brotherhood a terrorist organization.
And I cannot understand why it isn't, because it was regarded as a terrorist organization. I need to just research it a little bit more, but what I understand is under Obama it no longer was. I think under Bush it was Muslim Brotherhood. The Holy Land Foundation consisted of Muslim Brotherhood radicals. They were co-unindicted conspirators. Many of them morphed into an organization called CAIR, C-A-I-R, Council for American Islamic Relations. Those are actually the Muslim Brotherhood people who are very close to Obama. And there's no reason why there shouldn't be a...
If the Muslim Brotherhood was declared a terrorist organization, would that impact CARE directly?
I guess so. I'm not sure how it would be perceived, how it would be dealt with, but they call themselves a moderate organization. But in fact, if they're more from a radical organization, how moderate really are they? So I think we're going to have to take a break now. Very interesting dialogue with you so far. This will be continued. Please call us on 636-0110. And thank you to WVOX for this segment.
With business news at 20 past the hour, here's the latest update from the Fox Business Network on 1460 WVOX.
From the Fox Business Network, Wendy's is getting ready to install self-ordering kiosks in approximately 1,000 franchises across the U.S. at the end of this year. The average store will receive 3 of the machines. Franchises are not required to install them. Wendy's believes younger customers prefer to use a kiosk. The new FCC chairman, Ajit Pai, says he does not expect the agency to review the AT&T deal with Time Warner. He says the companies have structured the deal so that no airwave licenses would be transferred. And AT&T is lowering the price of its unlimited data plans. For a single phone, the cost is $10 less, $90 a month. Warren Buffett has more than doubled his stake in Apple since the start of the year. The Wall Street Journal estimates the investment at $18 billion. With the Fox Business Report, I'm Ginny Cosola.
Are you taking Viagra for ED? Now you can get sildenafil, the active ingredient in Viagra, in generic 20 milligrams for $2 per tablet. That's a savings of $40 per dose. Marley Drug is a North Carolina pharmacy delivering generic sildenafil to your door. For information on sildenafil, go to marleygenerics.com or call us at 800-452-1760. That's 1-800-452-1760.
America's great community radio station. This is New York State's most influential radio station, local and vocal, WVOX, where many different voices are heard in the land every day and every night. And now all over the world at WVOX.com.
WVOX.
Hello, this is Barbara Fix back with you. It's the rabbi is not with us today, but we're still discussing the Middle East with Goldie, who held the fort while I was away traveling in North Africa, in Egypt, South Africa, in Johannesburg, and some days for briefing in Tel Aviv.
We were talking about Egypt, and you were saying, although Sisi and the army is very pro-Israel, and want to make a warm peace, the cold peace that was, I guess, goes back to Mubarak, was pretty cold. And you were saying there's a generational problem before they perceive the Israelis in a different manner. Do you want to elaborate?
If you look at the problems in Egypt, the problems in Egypt are in fact the population. They can't afford to feed their population of 95 million, a growth of 2 million a year. Thank you. And
Frank.
And they really need water. They need food. Israel can help them with water and food because they can help with desalination and with irrigation. But there is a generation needs to change because there's anti-Israel sentiment. I think we have a caller. Do you have a caller?
Yes. Good afternoon. My name is Frank. I'm calling to alert your listeners to a few things. First of all, let's go back just in our recent history. When Bibi Netanyahu, last time he ran for office, Barack Obama sent his minions to Israel to try to interfere in Israeli domestic politics. Let us not forget that. Right. Barack Obama has never, ever been in the camp of the Israelis. he's never been a true friend and a true ally of the Israelis. Now we have Donald Trump as president, and the media, the secular media and the secular Democrats of this country, now want to try to intimate and say that Donald Trump is somehow an anti-Semite, that he doesn't like Jewish people, and that he's not a friend to Israel. This in the face of Bibi Netanyahu, who was just here recently and said to the American public and the world that Israel could have no better friend than the United States of America, and that the United States of America could have, as a president, no greater friend to Israel and to the support of both Israel and the United States than Donald Trump. But you would never know that from the media.
We
in
agree
this
with
country.
you. Barbara and I agree with you 100%.
Major point,
it seems
thank you.
Orwellian that the liberal press, led by the New York Times and the Washington Post, try and make the case every day that Trump is anti-Israel. And me, I'm just incredulous watching the DNC election this weekend of the party
Realize that
chairman.
Keith Ellison has been named their deputy to their DNC chairman?
Correct.
Keith Ellison is the deputy, a man who is a follower of Louis Farrakhan, one of the greatest anti-Semites the world has ever known.
We agree.
Good, he'd bring Adolf
crazy.
Hitler back if he could. And let me leave you with this. What about the fact, you want to talk irrational comments about the president, Barack Obama never raised his voice once about what happened to the Christian community that had been in the Middle East since the time of Christ. He never once brought it up. No Democrat ever once brought it up, the slaughter. And thank God for Israel and the Jewish people for taking those Christians in and giving them safe quarter. Thank God. I say thank God for Bibi Netanyahu, Israel, and the Jewish people.
We agree with you. And if you stand by in the latter half of the show, we have a gentleman, a friend of mine, Christopher Dewey. He's involved with an outfit called the Clarion Project, who actually made a movie in 2016 called Faith Keepers, which was a documentary about the violent persecution of Christians and other minorities in the Middle East. And you're right.
Word from the Obama administration, the New York Times, the elitist corporate media, not a word about it in all that time. Thank you, folks.
Thank you, Frank.
Thank you, Frank. We welcome your calls, your comments, absolutely spot on. And it's very unfortunate what's happening because we're not getting the truth in the media. And
Well,
I have
Frank,
a real
Frank
problem.
was pretty blunt and he was pretty truthful, place he said it as loud and clear as you could ever hear it. But I think, the State Department, the White House, have obfuscated. They basically have said things which aren't true, and they try to say, 99.9% of Muslims are.
Thank you. Absolutely true. In fact, I want to come back to what's happening with the anti-Semitic the threats at various places. And the fake reporting that it might be coming from the extreme right, when in fact it's there's no proof of that. But I think we have another caller come in.
Yes, hi folks. I just wanted to echo what Frank was talking about and just add a little extra thought to it. When I speak with some of my Jewish friends who vote Democratic, I try to ask them, well, why do you feel this way? That you can support a party that is walking away from Israel and does not seem to really be standing up for the Jewish people. I didn't, and really when I get down to it, the answer I usually get is, the Democrats are more open to the idea of abortion on demand. They're more open to the idea of social spending on programs. They're more open to the idea of open borders and no control on immigration. And I said, well, that's why you're more of a Democrat than voting for a Republican? And they say, yes. And I said, but do you see where the party is going? And they don't seem to be moved by that.
You're 100% right.
And that worries me.
We're 100% right, and Barbara and I share your frustration, and I have the same discussion with my friends, and unfortunately, I've lost many of my friends because I happen to be a Jewish Republican. I was originally for Rubio, but I did vote for Trump, and I think he's been terrific for the United States. He'll be great for the economy. I think he's going to be terrific for the Middle East, and his appointment of David Friedman to be the ambassador to Israel is terrific.
Yes.
I think all his picks, his generals, Mike Mattis is terrific. Rick Tillerson at the State Department.
Well,
I think he's made all the right moves. I don't get it. And you're right. Keith Ellison is an anti-Semite, and Tom Perez, is not far away. They moved radical left.
Just a last thought before the break is that my only hope is that as America begins to move towards a more reasoned kind of social order in our country, instead of these radical, crazy views, maybe people will begin to see things for what they are. I can only hope.
We hope so too.
Thank you so much for your contribution.
And we agree with you.
We're taking a break now. We'll be back with you. The next segment, we may be following up with the Clarion Fund as they come in. Should be very interesting. Goldie's lined up a nice surprise for us in my absence, and I thank you. We'll be back.
With world and national news, here is the latest update from Fox News Radio on 1460 WVOX.
Fox News Radio, I'm Paul Stevens. President Trump getting ready to address Congress tomorrow night, proposing a budget with a $54 billion increase in defense spending, while also urging smarter overall spending.
We're going to do more with less and make the government lean and accountable to the people. We can do so much more with the money we spend. With the $20 trillion in debt, can you imagine that? The government must learn to tighten its belt.
Senate Democratic Leader Chuck Schumer and House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi already criticizing Trump's budget proposal. House Intelligence Committee Chair Republican Devin Nunes of California asked today about any evidence of Russian involvement in the November election.
If there's anything out there, any American citizens from political campaigns coordinating with the Russian government, we clearly would want to know that, and we'd want to investigate it.
Nunes saying he's seen no evidence so far. Fox News, we report, you decide.
Cox and Graziano Funeral Home is one of the largest and finest funeral facilities in all of Westchester County. We represent a 4-generation tradition of providing the highest level of personal service. Our reputation has spanned throughout the county, and families have traveled the extra mile to call upon us during their time of need. Our spacious facilities and parking area provide immeasurable conveniences to visiting friends and loved ones. Most importantly, the diligence, dedication, and compassion of the Graziano family and our staff provides a heightened comfort at a time when it's needed the most. Visit us at www.coxandgraziano.com to learn more about us, or call at 914-698-5968. Our licensed funeral directors are on hand 7 days a week and can meet with you to discuss various options when planning a funeral. We can also assist you with pre-planning for peace of mind or for Medicaid. Our staff is knowledgeable, professional, and most importantly, compassionate. I'm Jen Graziano. When you call upon Cox and Graziano in your time of need, you are treated like part of a family. Mine.
Steve Pellettieri's Eye on Weather is brought to you on WVOX by Energy and the Indian Point Energy Center, right for New York.
Forecast Westchester County in the vicinity for today, partly to mostly cloudy. Our highs will climb into the lower 50s. Cloudy weather tonight, our overnight lows falling back into the upper 30s. Morning sunshine on Tuesday, then cloudy in the afternoon, maybe some light rain. Highs will climb 55 to 60. On Wednesday, even warmer with maybe some thunderstorms into the afternoon. Highs, though, will climb upper 60s, close to 70. Mostly sunny, much colder. Highs 45 to 50 on Thursday. Maybe some rain or snow showers on Friday. I'm Steve Pellettieri, Jr. reporting for 1460 WVOX.
Teresa Motko is a senior systems engineer at Indian Point Energy Center.
I live with my husband Rich and our 2 kids, less than 4 miles from Indian Point. So when people talk about safety, it really is a personal issue to me. I think it's important to understand how rigorous the safety culture is at Indian Point. My engineering team trains constantly, and inspectors from the Nuclear Regulatory Commission are on site at all times, overseeing our operations. Indian Point has also invested over $1 billion in upgrades and strengthened safety equipment and backup systems. And every day, my team and I make sure that these layers upon layers of safety and security at Indian Point are as strong as they can be.
Nearly 1,000 people like Teresa work at Indian Point, and safety is their single most important mission. Learn more about the plant that generates about 25% of the power used in the city and Westchester each year at rightfornewyork.com.
Bob Marone in the morning, Fred Dicker in the afternoon, and so much more in between. We're the station where so many different voices are heard every day. 1460 WVOX.
Hello, this is Barbara Fix. We're back with you. Goldie's here with me. Rabbi Wall will return next week. Please call us at 636-0110. And Goldie has organized that we have a wonderful guest with us. He's going to be on the phone by the name of Christopher Dewey. He is from the Clarion Fund. Over to you, Goldie.
Chris, are you with us?
I'm with you. Hey, Goldie, good morning.
Well, good morning to you in Santa Barbara. Good afternoon out here. Well, thank you for joining us. And the timeliness is pretty relevant because the last call I was asking what happened to Christians in the Middle East. And I know that's a passionate issue of yours, even though it didn't seem to be a passionate issue in the Obama White House or the State Department. So Chris Dewey is an old friend of mine. He started in the movie business. He went into finance. He's now in investment and philanthropy, and he is involved seriously with the Clarion Project. They have made 5 movies. The first movie was Obsession in 2008, which was about radical Islam's war against the West. Their second movie was The Third Jihad in 2009, Radical Islam's Vision for America. Their third movie was Uranium, which, as it sounds, was about the Iran and nuclear weapons. And in 2013, they made The Honor Diaries, and I think Chris was involved with that movie. And in 2016, Faith Keepers, which is a documentary about the violent persecution of Christians and other minorities in the Middle East. And I think Chris was involved in that. So you were involved in the last 2 movies. But before we get to the specifics of why Clarion and why Chris, maybe go over your background, Chris, because you have a very interesting background, and you started in the movie business, in the 60s and 70s in New York.
That's true. It's taking us back a long time. So this is take us back to Columbia University General Studies in 1966, and in a last-ditch effort not to continue a career in college, a friend of mine, Dennis Friedland, and I started what turned out to be the first independent film company called Canon Films. And we had a pretty good run, Goldie, during the 60s into the 70s until inflation finally caught up with us.
Tell us about some of the movies and some of the actors whose careers you actually started off their trajectories.
Well, we were the kind of the anti-Hollywood guys. We were young guys in New York City, and in those days it was the broken up of the studio and the theater chains by the consent decree. And so Dennis and I used a form of finance called limited partnerships, which had been used on Broadway plays, and they called Broadway play investors angels. Because, as you know, a theater comes together and the actors and so forth, and if a play doesn't work, everybody disperses. We called those angels, we changed the name to investors in movies, because a movie is celluloid, and who knew about all the other venues? But in those days, we used the limited partnership to finance movies. So by 1970, we had made a movie that some of you, I'm not sure of the age of your audience, but some of you might have remembered a movie called Joe. And it was the first film for Susan. It was Susan Sarandon's first picture. A fellow named Peter Boyle, who went on to fame. It was his first picture. John Avildsen was the director. He directed the Rocky pictures. Norman Wexler, who was the writer, his first movie, he wrote Serpico, which is a great old New York story, and John Travolta's Saturday Night Fever. So we were lightning struck Goldie, and we had a number of people, but there was a huge talent pool in New York City away from Hollywood back in the 60s, and that's who we drew on, and we made about and distributed almost 70 movies.
Unbelievable.
Truly
unbelievable.
We also made movies with, and your audience might remember, Menachem Golan and Yoram Globus, that went on. We made a movie we made a movie in Israel called The Dreamer, and then another one I can't remember the call. But we made a number of movies in Israel, and those two gents went on to fame. They bought Dennis and I out in 1979. That's when I came down and met you down on Wall Street at Bear Stearns. But they went on to using our entity, Canon Films, to buy MGM,
and became a very significant factor in Hollywood.
It did with Menachem and Yoram. So anyway, I love my first love in life was movies, and kind of come full circle here, and went down, as I said, met you at Bear Stearns back. That was in, I guess, late 1979, early 1980. Stayed on Wall Street. Worked at a couple of firms with you, including Jeffries.
Correct.
And then when my career was coming to an end, you said, don't retire. Come help me with a firm called National Securities, and I joined you there for a number of years until I finally
almost 10 years. I think we worked together.
Yeah, finally spent time, and along the way, when I was at Jeffries, got interested and started investing in robotics, also with you, my friend, with Robotics Ventures One, and that turned out to be, we made an investment in a company called Zcat. Later became Mako Surgical, and if you saw last week, there was a wonderful story in the Post.
I did read that incredible story. I tried to email it to you, but it was unemailable.
No, I got it. I saw it, and it was just for your audience' sake, it was a fireman who was involved in 9/11 rescue, and he had incredible pain with his hips, and we, this company we're referring to, that Goldie and I were really the founders of, called Mako Surgical, since sold to Stryker, used a robotic arm that came out of MIT. And this wonderful guy had the robotic surgery and was singing its praises, and it's kind of fun because something that we had started with 5 people in a back room turned into a company and employs thousands now, and is helping countless numbers of people with knee and hip replacements.
Yeah,
so
Chris is involved in a lot of projects, but he's one of the country's experts on robotic surgeries, whether it's for heart or for hair transplants, for knees, for shoulders, and other medical device companies, both in the United States and Israel. But how did you find the Clarion Project, and what's your passion for them or about them?
So, Goldie, your life and mine have been intertwined all these many years. It's actually you introduced me to a fellow named Richard Green, or possibly Rabbi Shore, down in your offices when we were down on Broadway, and the Clarion Project was started by Rabbi Shore. It's headquartered in Jerusalem. And the tagline is challenging extremism and promoting dialogue, and that is the core. And I liked Rabbi Shore. I liked this young guy Richard Green, and of course everybody's always trying to raise money. But after a couple of years, he talked to me about a project called the Honor Diaries, and it just struck a chord with me. I've got 3 daughters, and I want, obviously, as all fathers do, want the best for them, and I want them to be treated. I want them to have boundless opportunity to be treated with respect. and the Honor Diaries just struck a chord with me. And it was bringing together 9 activist women from different walks of life to talk about a subject which most Americans are not conversant in, and don't really understand this concept in certain societies of honor, and you read about it, honor killings, anyway, Goldie,
But we're going to be back to you right after these.
We have to take
sponsors.
a break now.
Sponsor break.
Sure.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you
Sure.
so much. We'll be back after the break, and please call us on 6360110 with your questions. Thank you.
With world and national news, here is the latest update from Fox News Radio on 1460 WVOX.
Fox News Radio, I'm Pat O'Neill. The White House says President Trump's first budget plan will call for $54 billion more in defense spending. The president says he'll offer more info in his address to Congress.
It's going to have to do with military, safety, economic development, and things such as that. Great detail tomorrow night.
Mr. Trump says he'll release the budget plan next month. Former President George W. Bush on NBC's Today Show said, "We all need answers on the extent of contact between President Trump's team and the Russian government."
President Bush also weighed in on President Trump's war on the media.
I consider the media to be indispensable to democracy.
Adding, quote, "We needed the media to hold people like me to account."
Fox's Rachel Sutherland. A jury's been picked in the trial of ex-NFL star Aaron Hernandez, accused in the 2012 fatal shootings of 2 men at a Boston nightclub. Fox News, we report, you decide.
This is the sound of a brand new outdoor grill being hurled off a 20-story building. Now a stylish glass coffee table. An electric guitar. These are the things you could enjoy, all cast into oblivion. Because when you throw away money on wasted electricity, you throw away everything you could have bought with it. Visit EnergySavers.gov and get tips on how to save energy and money. Then do things like switch to Energy Star light bulbs or Energy Star appliances, and you could save hundreds of dollars a year. So this doesn't happen to the recliner you've had your eye on, or this to the treadmill on your wish list, or this to the shiny new bike your kid's been asking for. Saving energy saves you money. Learn more at EnergySavers.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Energy and the Ad Council.
For almost 90 years, Modern Paint and Hardware has been a trusted name in New Rochelle, recognized throughout the community for superior service and quality paint and hardware. Now there are 3 New Rochelle locations. That's right, the original store at 316 Huguenot Street, their new store at 1335 North Avenue, and a 3rd location at 64 Center Avenue. But there's more. The same great service, national hardware and window treatment brands such as Hunter Douglas and superior paints, including the Benjamin Moore brand, are now open in Katona, Ardsley, Nanuet, Mount Kisco, Pomona, and Lewisboro. So whether you shop in one of our beautifully designed and well-organized stores, order online, or place a special order by phone, you can rest assured that a member of the Modern Paint and Hardware family is ready to treat you just like family, exceeding your expectations with service and a smile. Modern Paint and Hardware.
I'm Catherine Miller, founder of the Miller Law Group in New Rochelle. Divorce is hard. People are uncertain and all kinds of fears come up. Divorce is also complicated. During divorce, you're untangling threads from so many aspects of your life, your finances, your children, your legal status. I believe in taking an integrative approach to divorce because divorce happens at the intersection of where you've been and where you're going. it should point you in the direction that you want to go in, taking into account the things that are important to you, taking into account your children. You have a choice as to how to make those decisions. You can do it with compassion and heart and focus rather than reaction, anger, with thoughts of revenge. Give me a call and let's talk about it. 914-738-7765 or find me online, www.westchesterfamilylaw.com.
This is WVOX at 1460 for Fleetwood, Pella Manor, and Cherry Lawn.
WVOX. Hello, this is Barbara Fix, WVOX 1460. We'd like to continue with the fabulous dialogue that we're having with Goldie, and we're discussing about the Clarion Fund with Christopher Dewey. And would you like to continue,
Goldie? We only
Goldie?
got about 10 minutes left, so we got my dear friend Chris Dewey. He's involved in the Clarion Project. We're talking about a movie he got involved with called The Honor Diaries in 2013, and another movie he was involved with, The Faith Keepers. So, Chris, you've got the ball. Take it any direction you want.
Sure. Well, I mean, So on the Honor Diaries, just briefly, the idea was to bring and try to help Western women understand the concept of honor, and bringing these wonderful women together. And the Honor Diaries has taken on this life of its own. There is a newsletter around the Honor Diaries. It's been viewed almost 5 million times now on YouTube, and another million or more on Facebook. And a subset of that is a censored women's film festival. First one was in Washington, D.C. The second one was in Berlin this year. I think it's going to be coming to New York next year. But it gives voice to women who don't have the ability to get their story out there. So that was the Honor Diaries. And there's a wonderful woman all of them were wonderful, but there's a especially great woman named Raheel Raza in the Honor Diaries, and she is just this kind of this normal woman from Toronto whose passion is to bring these ideas and bring a voice to it. So we had an idea doing something by the numbers. Pew Research had done research in something like 37 Muslim countries around the world, and when our former president says that 99.9% of all Muslims are peaceful, well, not so according to Pew Research. And with Raheel as the moderator, we did a little 14-minute film based around the Pew Research, and that's had almost 5 million views. And more specifically, Raheel got so many questions that she shot a little. We shot a little 6-minute response of her questions, and that has gotten almost 40,000 questions came to her based on the honor, by the numbers.
That's incredible. I don't know that piece, but we certainly read the papers and we see everyone accusing the Trump administration of lying, of alternative facts, and now you've just said. I mean, can there be a bigger lie than Obama saying 99.9% of Muslims are peace-loving and have nothing to do with radical Islam or jihad? And as you said, you made the movie by the numbers with Raheel Raza, and you got the Pew study, which came out in 2013, which wholeheartedly refuted that proposition from the White House.
No, it doesn't make sense. I mean, I don't want to get too deep into politics, but one of the things our former president could have done is being brought up as a young Muslim, being in that society, he could have been such a force for goodness and peace and try to bring some understanding. Because for my feeling is most of us here in the West don't quite understand the religion, and the religion itself is. I mean, it's complicated. There's something called Sharia law, and if you believe in Sharia law, you do not believe in rights for women, and so it's just confounding
And
how
I think according to Ayaan Hurst Ali.
Ayaan Hirsi Ali.
Ayaan Ali Hurst says basically, I think 60% of Muslims worldwide believe in Sharia.
Yeah, and that's in the Pew Research, and you believe, and when you see something like 25% of Muslims in America believe in Sharia, it's like head scratching.
And
How
if you
can this
believe in
possibly...
Sharia, then you're believing in honor killings, corporal punishment, stoning unfaithful spouses.
Well, here's another one for you that we do on the Clarion. Clarion's kind of a news website that you can get it. Sign up it's for free. You can get it. I think we do a couple of blasts a week. But there was a woman named Linda Sarsour. Linda Sarsour. She was the co-head of the Women's March on Washington. I don't want to get too. Just go Google her and look at the things that she has said about Raheel what's her name you mentioned her name earlier.
Ayaan Hirsi Ali.
Ayaan Ali Hirsi. It's just she said the most horrible things because she believes in Sharia. So here's a woman at the head of the Women's March in Washington that doesn't believe in universal rights for women. It's just again.
I think she comes out of CARE, which is the Council on American Islamic Relations,
she absolutely does. And if you look at their background, it goes back to the Muslim Brotherhood, but. We're going to get attacked here.
I know. And we're running out of time. Let's get to Faith Keepers. I know.
But there's something else, Goldie. You mentioned earlier your last caller about Christians in the Middle East. So we've done a movie called Faith Keepers, and we hope to have it. We're hoping that we're told that we're going to get a special on Fox News, which would be the premiere and a roundtable about it. But just in today's paper, there's a story about Coptic Christians being persecuted in the Sinai, which is Egypt, and there is when you see this movie, it's tragic. I mean, in Bethlehem, remember Bethlehem?
Yes.
There are something like 20 Christians left in all of Bethlehem now. It's quite extraordinary how this religion has been wiped out, and it's not only Christianity, but other. Remember the Yazidis, and their plight, and how their women were forced into slavery. I mean, it's just quite extraordinary when you dig into what's really going on in the world. And I wanted to the film is going back to the very beginning. Film is powerful, and it's a way to communicate. And with our younger people, unfortunately, not reading as much as they used to, and so much happening on their iPhones and iPads, visuals, movies, mini movies, I think are a way to communicate with them. And lastly, we're doing a movie about the radicalization of kids. And you'd be shocked. I mean, you've probably seen pictures of little 4- and 5-year-old dressed up as Hamas, and with their little toy guns and stuff like that. It's extraordinary.
Is that going to be a full-length movie coming out of Clarion Project, or one of the short videos?
Well, it's going to be, but that's a debate inside. It's going to be a documentary. But what we want to do is we want to do more because we see the power of by the numbers.
Yep.
So these much smaller, shorter movies, and they can be more timely. Yes, but they can also be more timely because, to put a movie together, it takes 9 months, a year, much longer for a feature film. But even for a documentary, it takes time. So we're pushing more to do more content on the website around what we think these are important issues.
Question on this movie, The Faith Keepers. Why has the government and head of Christian churches around the world been so quiet on this issue? I mean, why does the Clarion Project and Chris Dewey have to be the ones to make the movie to point out that there's been a total destruction of Christian communities, from Pakistan all the way to Egypt, and these are these are old ancient communities that predated Islam by 600-700 years.
Well, Goldie, that's a super good question, and I scratch my head about it. I mean, it just it doesn't make sense. Where's the head of the Christian church, the Catholic Christian church, on this? he just I don't get it. But people make a difference, and that's why the Clarion. That's why I love Rabbi Shore and Paula Queskin, who's the producer of these movies, and Richard Green and others that are making it possible for other sources of news to get out there. But Goldie, there's something interesting that's happening, and there was an article about it. Remember, there was something called Voice of America.
Yes.
And Voice of America there's a revival of that, I'm hoping, to tell the story from a government standpoint. I hear music in the background.
We're going to have to shut it
All right,
down.
thank you, Chris.
Would you come back again, please? We'd love to have you back.
New York.
When you're in New York,
we want
we'd
you back,
love
Chris.
to have you back live on the show, Chris. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's enjoyed being with you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, God bless. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you to WVOX. Be with you next week.